Imagine a substance that can reportedly sober up a rat in minutes, completely blocking the receptors in the brain that trigger intoxication. A fruit that acts as a shield for the liver, accelerating the breakdown of toxins before they can cause permanent damage. For 1,500 years, emperors and monks used it to erase the effects of alcohol poisoning, calling it the tree of sobriety. In the 1860s, a visionary doctor brought it to America, convinced it would become the continent's next great sugar crop. He was wrong. It did not fill the pantries of the West. Instead, it was labeled a weed, banned by conservationists and forgotten by the public. But the tree didn't leave. It just waited for science to catch up. This is the story of the Japanese Raisin Tree, Hovenia dulcis, and the biological antidote that might be hiding in your backyard. Welcome to Ancestral Yields. If you want to discover the forgotten plants that can heal the land and the body, make sure to like this video and subscribe. To understand the true power of this plant, we must look backward to a time when medicine and mythology were intertwined. To the Tang dynasty in China, around 659 AD. The Tang Materia Medica, the world's first state-sponsored pharmacopoeia, lists a plant known as jijuzi. The texts describe it not just as a food, but as a functional tool with a singular, bizarre property: the ability to neutralize the effects of wine. The legend of the tree's power was so pervasive that it spawned one of the most famous myths in Chinese medical history, recorded by the great physician Li Shizhen in the Compendium of Materia Medica. The story tells of a man from the south who decided to build a house using the strong, durable wood of the Hovenia tree. Once the house was finished, he stored a large jar of wine inside. When he went to open the jar later, he found it had turned into water. The ancient physicians believed the wood was so potent that its mere presence could fundamentally alter the chemistry of alcohol, stripping it of its intoxicating power. While the story of the wine turning to water is folklore, the clinical application was real. For centuries, practitioners of traditional Chinese medicine prescribed a tea made from the seeds and stalks of this tree to treat drunkenness, fever, and liver stagnation. They didn't really know why. They simply knew that if a man consumed this plant, the poison of the alcohol would vanish, and the liver would survive. Fast forward a millennium, and the tree found a new champion, this time from the West. The year was 1862. The United States was embroiled in the Civil War. But in Yokohama, Japan, an American physician named Dr. George Rogers Hall was fighting a different kind of battle. He was an agricultural explorer, a man obsessed with the biodiversity of the East. Hall wasn't looking for medicine. He was looking for the next great American crop. Hall saw the Japanese raisin tree growing in temple gardens and wild forests. He tasted the fruit, which isn't actually a fruit at all, but a swollen, fleshy stalk, and tasted the intense sweetness, reminiscent of a pear soaked in honey. He saw a tree that was hardy, fast-growing, and produced massive amounts of sugar with zero care. He believed he was looking at a dual-purpose miracle, a majestic shade tree that would drop candy for children and high-energy fodder for livestock every fall. In 1862, Hall packed the first crate of Hovenia dulcis specimens and shipped them to the S.B. Parsons Nursery in Flushing, New York. By 1880, the tree was planted at the prestigious Arnold Arboretum in Boston. The horticultural community was buzzing. They distributed it across the temperate United States, from the Carolinas to California, convinced it would become a staple of the American landscape. It was planted in parks, arboretums, and homesteads, a living legacy of the Victorian obsession with exotic botany. So, If Dr. Hall believed it was a miracle crop, why isn't it in the grocery store next to the grapes and apples? Why isn't it a household name? In the 20th century, agriculture shifted toward mechanization. Crops needed to be uniform. The edible part of Hovenia is the peduncle, the fruit stalk. It is a tangled, knobby brown twig that looks like a dehydrated chicken foot. It is fragile. If you try to harvest it with a mechanical shaker, the stalks tangle together. It cannot roll down a sorting line. But the tree didn't stop growing just because the market rejected it. In fact, it grew too well. In the absence of harvesting, the tree began to spread. Birds ate the seeds and carried them into the deep forests. In South America, particularly Brazil, Hovenia dulcis found the climate so agreeable that it began to displace native forests. It grew faster than the local flora, shading out competitors. What was once a prized medicinal import was reclassified. Today, conservation groups in states like Texas and North Carolina monitor it closely. It appears on watch lists for invasive species. A tree that produces a unique, liver-protecting compound by the ton is now cut down and poisoned with herbicide because it is too resilient for its own good. But while the agricultural industry wrote it off as a weed, the chemists began to look closer. In the last 2 decades, modern science has finally unlocked the mechanism that Li Shizhen wrote about 400 years ago. The secret isn't magic. It is a flavonoid called dihydromyricetin, or DHM. When researchers analyzed the raisins, those swollen stalks, they found a nutritional profile that rivals modern energy gels. A 2010 study published in Planta Medica confirmed that the stalks are composed of approximately 11.4% glucose, 4.7% fructose, and a staggering 12.6% sucrose. This is high-octane biological fuel. To put that in perspective, 3.5 ounces of Japanese raisin stalks contain more accessible energy than the same weight of commercial sports drinks, but delivered with fiber and minerals. The mineral density is equally impressive. The same weight of stalks delivers potent amounts of potassium and calcium, essential for muscle function and recovery. But the true miracle is the DHM. A groundbreaking study published in the Journal of Neuroscience in 2012 revealed exactly how this compound works. When alcohol enters the body, it affects the brain by binding to GABA receptors, causing that sluggish, intoxicated feeling. Simultaneously, the liver works overtime to convert alcohol into acetaldehyde, a toxic compound that causes the nausea and headaches of a hangover, and then into harmless acetate. DHM intervenes in this process like a surgical tool. First, it binds to the GABA receptors in the brain, blocking alcohol from attaching. In the 2012 study, rats given DHM did not exhibit the signs of drunkenness even after consuming heavy amounts of ethanol. They sobered up in a fraction of the time. Secondly, DHM acts as a turbocharger for the liver. It increases the activity of the enzymes ADH and ALDH, speeding up the breakdown of the toxic acetaldehyde. It literally helps the body flush the poison faster. Furthermore, the study showed that DHM reduced the urge to drink. Rats that were habituated to alcohol voluntarily drank less when treated with the extract. It serves as a hepatoprotective agent, shielding the liver from the inflammation and lipid accumulation that leads to cirrhosis. The ancient tree of sobriety wasn't a myth. It was a sophisticated biochemical intervention wrapped in a brown twig. This brings us to the revival. Unlike the fragile monocrops of commercial farming, Hovenia is a survivor. It thrives in USDA hardiness zones 6 through 10, meaning it can grow from New York to Florida and across to the west coast. It is drought-tolerant once established and requires 0 pesticides because almost no American insects eat it. However, growing this tree comes with a caveat: patience. If growing from seed, be prepared for a long commitment. The seeds have a hard coat that requires scarification, scratching the shell, to wake up. And it can take 7 to 10 years for a seedling to mature and produce its first harvest. But not all hope is lost. Specialized nurseries like One Green World or Forest Farm often stock grafted cultivars or established saplings. These trees bypass the juvenile stage and can begin dropping medicinal stalks in as little as 3 years. For the home grower or homesteader, it is the ultimate lazy harvest. The stalks ripen late in the fall, usually after the first frost, when most other fruit is gone. There is no need for a ladder or a machine. When the stalks are sweet and ready, they naturally fall to the ground. Simply shake the branches and collect the medicine from a tarp. There are 3 main ways to consume it. First, eat them raw. They taste like a mix of pear, clove, and raisin. Second, dry them, which concentrates the sugar and makes them taste like dates, perfect for baking. Third, do what the ancients did. Simmer the dried stalks in water for 20 minutes to create a sweet, restorative tea. However, a word of caution is necessary. While the fleshy fruit stalk is a traditional food consumed safely for centuries, the hard seeds attached to the end of the stalk contain alkaloids and should not be consumed in large quantities. When processing for tea or baking, it is best to remove the seeds if possible, or strain them out. Furthermore, this is not medical advice. While the science on DHM is promising, this plant should not be used as a license to drink excessively. Alcohol toxicity is dangerous. Additionally, because DHM alters how the liver processes enzymes, it can theoretically interact with other medications metabolized by the liver. Those who are pregnant, nursing, or on prescription medication should consult a physician before adding any potent herbal extracts to their diet. The story of the Japanese raisin tree is a reminder that the definition of a weed is often just a reflection of ignorance. Plants that looked good in a plastic clamshell container were prioritized, while the ones that offered genuine healing were discarded. Hangover cures were synthesized in labs, while the trees that produced them for free were cut down. Nature provided a specific antidote to one of humanity's oldest self-inflicted wounds, and it was left to rot on the forest floor. But now, you know the name. You know the science. If you are ready to reclaim your health and your land, hit that subscribe button. We have more archives to open. See you in the garden.